and welcome back to When IT Hits the Fan, brought to you by Rhyno Healthcare Solutions, our second episode in our new studio. I have to thank our guest for being here today, Rich Temple. Can you tell us a little bit, who are you and what do you do?
I would be happy to. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. My name is Rich Temple. I'm Vice President, Chief Information Officer, and HIPAA Security Officer for a cardiovascular specialty hospital in southern New Jersey. And I been doing this for a number of years. I've been kind of all over the place. I've been on the vendor side, I've been on the consulting side, and now I'm on the provider side. So they always say that as a provider, when you make recommendations or implement policies, you kind of have to eat your own dog food. So it makes it really adds a whole new level of accountability for those things that you decide and what you roll out, because you will be living it day in and day out.
Absolutely. And like you hinted to, you've had a long and varied career in IT leadership. What originally drew you to this field? Let's start there.
Because it's fun.
I agree.
Truth told, it always has been fun.
Yeah.
When I started out in healthcare IT, I was building data models to help recover third-party insurance, and I was using different data sources that I'd be getting from different vendors and finding ways to model those to be able to squeeze out the information needed to get hospital claims reimbursed that otherwise wouldn't have been reimbursed.
Mhm.
And it was just so much fun. And I then sort of moved on to use other tools and to get more involved in what kinds of strategies do we need to have in order to help hospitals maximize their revenue. And I then got introduced to the clinical side of things as clinical health IT really took off. And once you sort of get in that mode, it's hard to get out. We sometimes say that healthcare IT is like the Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And just for the sake of people with the same title do different things, can you walk us through, just in broad terms, a little bit of the overview of your current role?
I oversee most of the technology within my hospital. My department does, I should say, and I guess I oversee the department. I make sure that the network is stable. I make sure the electronic health record is running properly. I make sure that we give people the right analytic tools at the right time in order to do their jobs properly. I'm looking at new ways that we can strategically and tactically apply technology to real world workflow problems that different parts of the organization are having, and that's a perpetual challenge. And both the nature of the workflow problems as well as the nature of the technology are rapidly evolving. So it's a real nice opportunity to keep my finger close to things, learn about really fascinating technologies, and have the opportunity to, practically speaking, see how they roll out in a real life patient and provider setting.
And absolutely. And you've been on multiple sides of the playing field, vendor and provider. What are some universal truths that I think we sometimes like to pretend that these sectors are divided from each other, but I think they're tentacles of the same octopus. What are some best practices that just kind of translate between everywhere?
This is almost going to sound like borderline corny, but
Yeah. I love it.
one, we're all here for the patient. I mean, yes, we have to keep our doors open, but everybody recognizes that everything we're doing in healthcare is in some way to enhance the experience of the patient, to provide better outcomes, to provide them a better journey while they're navigating through a healthcare system. We all want to do that. And I think the other thing, just even on a broader scale, is that we're all here because we want to make a difference. And this is all aspects of healthcare delivery, healthcare software development. Everybody's in this to be able to make a difference for patients and make a difference for society. I mean, do people want to make money on this? Oh, absolutely. But I think there's definitely a level of altruism that permeates everything that we all do in the healthcare world, and that makes it kind of special.
Absolutely. And in the last couple of years, moving more into the meat and potatoes of actual IT, cybersecurity. It's something that at least we here at Rhyno, when we talk with different payers, providers, over and over again, the cybersecurity needs over the last few years have gotten enormous, constantly changing. I'm wondering from your position, the cybersecurity threats are always evolving. What's something that helps you stay ahead of this almost unpredictable field?
Right. We have to evolve too, just like the bad guys are evolving.
Hmm.
And we have to tap into every resource we possibly can in order to do that. There are statewide collaboratives that share information about threats that are coming down the road. There are federal initiatives that do that too. The CISA, which is the cybersecurity arm of the Department of Homeland Security, has gotten very involved in this space too, and we've partnered with them to just make sure that we are as on top of our game as we possibly can. Really, the thing that we all have to realize is that the bad guys always have one step ahead of us because
Yeah.
they find the vulnerability and then we have to go run to fix it. So
Hmm.
they have an advantage over us, but we have to be as proactive as we can.
Yeah.
When vulnerabilities are identified, we have to jump all over it to get those patched up and remediated.
Absolutely. And giving that increase in given that increasing sophistication of between phishing and social engineering attacks, things like that, what are some practical ways you've found to build a security conscious culture where you are throughout the entire enterprise?
We're doing a number of different things. One of the things that we do is and many places are doing this, it certainly isn't unique to us. We send out fake phishing emails. We have people who in our team who will come up with an email that is it will look like a fish, and we
Mhm.
send it to everybody, and we find out how many people actually click on it. And the idea really, and it's not a real, honestly, it's not a real popular program, but it's
Right.
something we really have to do.
Yeah.
And we don't do it. We don't do it to play gotcha. We do it to be able to identify which of our team members might have more of a predilection to clicking on something that could take our whole system down, and then we can target in servicing to them to make sure that the messages that we have about don't click on anything that you're not supremely comfortable with
Yeah.
really permeate. We also are rolling out more proactive programs. We're looking to build a campaign with posters and with table tents in the cafeteria and things on our intranet. Just a nice pithy little abbreviation where each letter stands for something. So everybody sort of has it in their head, that's it's that this is it becomes part of their DNA in essence to
Yeah.
count to five, count to 10, don't just click on something. So we're trying to, the fake fishes, I think sometimes reveal a problem after the fact where the damage could have been done. Whereas being able to have a proactive approach, I think heads a lot of things off at the pass.
Absolutely. And talking a little bit more about the hands on keyboard stuff, when it comes between, let's say, zero trust or defense in depth, what are some of the sort of philosophies behind cybersecurity that you have found to be the most beneficial in the long term?
When in doubt, be suspicious. When in doubt, report it and we can look at it.
Yeah.
Um, we use the term zero trust in cybersecurity in really a number of different settings. Zero trust is certainly a concept, and I think that concept is very valid to say
Hmm.
assume nothing.
Yeah.
Don't assume the goodwill of anybody. If something looks funky, it probably is funky. There's also a model of how you deploy applications called zero trust, and that one's trickier to roll out because basically you're starting from the premise that I don't grant access to anyone to anything,
It's a lot of friction.
and and if you haven't done that previously and you've had an IT infrastructure for a number of years
Yeah.
that isn't predicated on that model, it's very hard to unwind that. But what we really do is just make sure we're double and triple checking everybody, that where anything that looks suspicious gets reported. We have agents that are looking, investigating our network for anything that looks like it might be out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
We're making sure that we validate and we have expiration dates on any, say, outside resources who want to access our system. There's a whole multitude of things that we do. So zero trust just basically means don't assume goodwill on anyone's
Yeah.
part as it relates to how they might be accessing our system.
Absolutely. And moving on to more IT infrastructure innovation, every IT department has to deal with aging infrastructure or perhaps infrastructure that was never even brought into modernity in the first place, but we aren't supposed to say that. It also have to deal with tech debt, right? how do you know when it's time to upgrade versus optimize what you have, or even try something brand new?
I think it's important for all IT leaders to stay on top of the evolving nature of different types of IT technology. In our world, we're undertaking a project right now that we're pretty far along on, that are replacing our wireless phones with a
Yeah.
whole new set of phones. And I think that's going to be really, really exciting. Hospitals inevitably have lead in the walls. There
Yeah.
are
I'm
many
so
different things.
interested by this story.
You've
No,
experienced this, right?
yes. No,
The-
please.
the-
And if I can just interrupt for 1 second,
sure.
can we let's ease the audience into this story, because I do think it's brilliant and it shows one of the sides of IT that perhaps isn't always considered. Everybody's always thinking about bringing in the newest software or updating the hardware or protecting from outside, but this is such an incredibly practical problem. If you could walk us in on it,
Oh,
I'd be
sure.
grateful.
So, the nature of providing patient care means that many of our clinicians, our physicians, our nurses,
Yeah.
therapists, and whatnot, they're mobile
Yeah.
and they need to be communicated with in real time. And
Yes.
the tools that have been provided to those people to be able to do that, they work well enough. I would say, well, that's not even fair. If anything less than perfect isn't well enough, but they work most of the time. But
Yeah.
you can't have drop calls, and running off a wireless network, sometimes it's difficult to not have it because of the nature of how hospitals are built and how different rooms are protected, et cetera, et cetera. So we're actually in the process of rolling out a whole new phone system that
Yeah.
is going to so not run directly on our wireless network. Will run with a series of base stations
Mhm.
with new phones, and where we've piloted it, it's worked spectacularly. So we're real excited to be able to roll it out house-wide. And you can imagine what a dissatisfier it is for someone who is dealing with an urgent or an emergent situation, and they're on their phone and the phone drops.
Yes.
So we have to do everything we can as an organization to get those drop calls as close to zero as we possibly can.
And to go into it just a little bit further, one of the main causes is the lead in the walls that protects the providers themselves from, and also patients as well, from the imaging machinery.
For
Um,
sure. Yeah.
and I just think it's so wonderful to get around a problem that is a solution of another problem. It makes this triple decker Rubik's cube.
Yeah.
Anyway, I shouldn't get too excited.
Sometimes that's the nature of the beast, though.
Yeah,
As you are very excited about solving one problem,
yeah,
something downstream happens. Like, okay, here we go again. Now we just kick the can, but it's
yeah.
inevitable. But again, we just have to make sure that we anticipate every potential bit of adversity that we might face, and we are as proactive as we can in trying to address it.
And when it comes to providing, and not just about this phone program, but when it comes to training and, let's say, going back to the ideal but not perfect practice of no trust, when it comes to implementing this on a user base that is as taxed already and as in need of fast motion as medical professionals, what are some of the methodologies that you use to make sure that not too many people are out for training on a given day, or that you haven't, in trying to protect the system, you haven't added so many roadblocks that now it's become unusable?
And it is a really big deal. A lot of it is intuitive in terms of we've been doing this for so long. We know what level of staff we need to have present at any given time to be able to protect the hospital. Our IS staff, information system staff, also knows that if there is some kind of an incident, everybody is on call, all hands on deck. I don't
Yeah,
care where you are, you
exactly.
know. So, I mean, fortunately, I'm knocking wood as I say this. It's not a frequent occurrence when something like that happens, but it's part of the job to recognize that if you may not be here now, but if we need to bring you in, be ready.
Absolutely. And do you think that there is value in, yes, it takes more time away from already systemically burnt out providers, but the drills where you bring them back down to pencil and paper just so that they can have some practice if the worst were to ever happen in a cybersecurity event where everything needs to be blacked out? Do you think there's any value in tabletopping and things like that?
There really is value in that
Yeah.
because in the event of a disaster, there are things that You are going to want to make sure that providers know how to do by hand. It could be like, it could be titrating meds. I mean, it could be in any number of different things. Calculate, doing different calculations. The computer's always done that for you, but what if the computer's not there? You still need to do it.
Yeah.
So there is value to doing that. Practically speaking, it's sometimes tough to do it, but there definitely is value in doing that, and we're mindful of that as we continue to evolve our incident response plans. And how do we take care of things like that? We, in general, because we do take scheduled downtimes to put patches on and do other
Yeah.
upgrades and things like that. People do get the opportunity to work in a downtime in a scheduled setting, so that helps.
Absolutely. And so moving more into leadership advice, management, communication, things like that. I think it also, given your background, given that you've worked on different sides, you've been the vendor, you've been the manager, as an IT leader, everybody is trying to appease a wide range of stakeholders, from executives to frontline staff. What is your approach to communicating technical priorities to, let's say, non-technical decision makers?
I want to be as transparent as we can as to what we're working on.
Yeah.
I also want to drive the point home that we, as an information systems department, we exist because our role in life is to make it easier for every stakeholder that we have within this organization. Those stakeholders all have different needs. Sometimes those needs can be conflicting, but at the end of the day, we're here to serve them. And I think as an IT leader, I think we have to drive that point home that we are absolutely 100% serious about that, and communicate the good news and communicate the not so good news. Find people hear when something happens, and when happily it doesn't happen all that much, but when it does, people want to be told that this is what's going on.
Yeah.
If they don't know, it generates uncertainty, it generates angst.
Yeah.
If something happens that does impact the ability to use the technology we have, they just want to know what's up, what we're doing about it, and to the extent that we can possibly come back with DTA, they want to know that. So people understand that occasionally things happen, but we, as a department that is supporting these vital functions, we have to let people know what we know as it's happening. We have to do that a little bit carefully sometimes if the network engineer that's looking to fix a down network or fix a down system is constantly fielding calls from folks, then that's going to undermine his or her ability to do that. So my role as a CIO is oftentimes I'm the mouthpiece, and I check in at periodic intervals. I need to let them do their work, and if we don't do that, then yes, we're also giving them more angst, which you don't want when you're trying to fix a broken system.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's with non-technical decision-making governance staff. What about the clinicians themselves? Sometimes I've heard that sometimes getting clinicians off of one system and onto another, again, it's not that they want to put their heels into the mud. It's that they already are dealing with so much to try to move on to something new. How do you maybe help them see the light, or even just remove friction in the transition process to moving on to something new?
I think at the end of the day, we have to drive the point home that everything we do, we certainly hope, is for the betterment of their experience.
Yeah.
They may not see that right away because if they're on an older system and they say they don't love that older system, but they've learned how to apply workarounds, they've learned to navigate through it, and then we come along with a brand new system and they're all starting from scratch. Yeah, that could be kind of stress inducing to say the least, but we do want to drive home why we're doing this, what the benefits are. Perhaps the benefits are that you will now have better interoperability with other systems within the organization. You don't have to click in 10 different places to see
Yeah.
data that you need. You just click here and it'll be there. So I mean, we're trying to drive that point home. Change management is never easy, especially in a fast-paced patient care environment where lives and health hang in the balance. But that shouldn't be a reason not to do it. But it is certainly a reason to make sure that we are being as communicative as we can, that we're getting as much buy-in as we can, and when things come up, we're listening as much as we can.
Absolutely. And you've touched on this quite a bit, but I think I'm asking this from more of just a general, widespread perspective. In IT, we talk a lot about technical debt. Again, the hands-on keyboard stuff, the making sure that everything is as optimized as possible, that the cost savings are there. But when it comes to organizational debt, or the idea that there are best practices within the culture and structure of IT teams themselves. What are some of the, I'll use the word healthiest. We all work in health systems. What are some of the
Sure.
healthiest markers inside of an IT culture that helps move it and benefit patient care?
I think the IT culture has to be collaborative, that
Yeah.
we have to collaborate with each other to make sure that we're not stepping on each other when we're doing things. It has to be collaborative with the rest of the organization, that we're reflecting the organization's strategic, operational, and tactical priorities. It has to be collaborative with different departments in terms of giving them what they need and listening to them when they say we need to do X, Y, and Z, and not telling them that you should be doing A, B, and C.
Yeah.
So I think being collaborative, being communicative, and recognizing, this is, I kind of hit this before, but I think recognizing that we are here to serve them.
Yeah.
I mean, we there are times we have to push back because maybe it's a cybersecurity thing that we can't just do what you want because we'd be
Yeah.
exposing the hospital to an unacceptable risk, or what you want really may not be what what you'd be getting, and we
Yeah.
have to explain that. So we have to, we don't, we're not there to just blindly roll over, but we are there to serve them and serve them by giving them what they need, but by also giving them feedback on ideas that they have as to whether these ideas in our mind will work as well as they would like.
Yeah. And let's move it internally. That those are excellent qualities within a whole team. What about an individual trying to have a career and longevity here in IT? It's a high stress, high stakes environment, and there is competition. What are the best qualities a person can have if they're hoping to rise through the ranks, if they're hoping to have a long career here?
I think recognize that IT, if practiced in the most optimal way possible, is a people discipline as much as it's a technology discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think there's sometimes a perception that we're all sitting there with our glasses halfway down our nose behind a computer, not talking to other people, and that's really not the case. I mean, we when we're doing our jobs properly, we can
Only
be
some
very
of
very
us do that.
we can be very very technically facile, but we also we have to understand and be able to maintain dialogue with the people who are using our systems. So I think those IT people who recognize that a lot of what they have to do is working the people angle are those that are more likely to succeed. Soft skill, I mean, IT always seems like a very hard skill centric discipline, and to some extent it certainly is. But there's a lot of soft skill that goes into IT if you're going to deliver a good product to people and really support them in the manner that they deserve to be supported in.
To jump right off of that, for those of us that are perhaps looking to better our soft skills, you can't just go on and get another certification.
No.
What are some of the best ways for, let's say, a more technically minded person to push their glasses up and move away from the screen a little bit?
I think get out there, do rounds, talk to people. What's bothering you in terms of how the technology that you're using is supporting what you need to do. Be
Yeah.
understanding, be empathetic, and really be understanding and empathetic, and try to think of ways in collaboration with those stakeholders to address them. If they think of you as a partner, then you're not the IT people who are the who are just saying no to different things. You're really there to help them.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then now moving even above this field itself and just into the idea of career longevity, no matter sort of what career you're in. If you were able to put a message in a bottle, send it back in time to yourself at the beginning of your career, what might you tell yourself? What advice could you pass down through time?
Recognize that, I think I would say recognize that significant change is a multidimensional thing, and just because you being, I guess, me in this case, the younger version of me, want to do something doesn't mean that you can wave a magic wand and do it. And don't get frustrated when you hit obstacles that you say, why am I hitting these obstacles? I mean, everybody thinks they're trying to do the best job they can. Sometimes they raise things that are truly legitimate, and others sometimes are just a reaction to resisting change. But don't take it personally, work through it, recognize that things, even really vital things, are not going to happen immediately, and be able to work each of the steps in the change management process in a way that will allow for the walls to be knocked down, but to leave, I guess, as little blood on the tracks as we possibly can.
And thank you again. That was perfect. And thank you so much for making time for us today to share your hard won wisdom, both technical and also just career and life things. It
Oh,
really
my
means the
pleasure. Thanks for
world.
having me.
Yeah, no. And so this has been another episode of When IT Hits the Fan. He's Rich Temple. I'm always Christian Patillo. And please follow us on LinkedIn. If you like this episode, feel free to leave a comment down below. And thank you again for your attention and your time.